Hello, everybody, and welcome to our special emergency broadcast podcast about our new Halloween short film, which we're calling High Moon because it involves several things, subtly alluded to in that title. And here to talk about it today are my usual collaborators, Kevin James.
Hi there.
And Ryan Murphy.
Hello.
And also our frequent collaborators, dinosaur expert Corey Tilton.
Hey.
And regular human Dan Hamilton.
How's it going?
So far removed from paleontology, you don't even want to think about it.
So I'll throw this over to you, Kevin, because you came up with the idea for this film.
Yeah, it has been a year and a half since we uploaded a short film, guaranteed video that is, and
not counting Bloodhounds Incorporated.
Not counting Bloodhounds Incorporated. And a couple weeks ago, I was thinking about the movie Big Bully, the Tom Arnold, Rick Moranis vehicle, and a plot thread of that film, like the inciting incident of that movie, is a child steals moon rocks from a museum. And while I was thinking about that movie, I thought to myself, man, moon rocks are kind of a funny plot device. I wonder if I could think of a story that incorporates them. In October was on the rise, it was getting towards the end of September, and I was thinking about Halloween. And I thought, moon rocks, werewolves. What could I do with moon rocks and werewolves? And
what did you do, Kevin?
Yeah, what did you make us do, Kevin?
After thinking about it for all of 10 seconds, I picked up my phone and I called Dan. I did a video chat with Dan, and I said, "Hey Dan, is this funny?" And I explained the plot of the movie, which was, a lycanthrope, like a guy who turns into a werewolf, steals moon rocks to smoke them, like rocks, like crack rocks. And I just didn't know if there was enough steam in that engine to carry a short film. And Dan was laughing hysterically about it. I talked to another mutual friend of ours, Brooke, who also thought it was super funny. And then I just crossed my fingers and talked to Ryan and Neil going, hey, do y'all think this is funny enough? Do we have enough ideas on the table here? Can we improv? Can we riff on this and make it worth a 3 to 5 minute viewing experience? And surprisingly, everyone was on board.
To be clear, when you pitched it to me, I think all three of us, myself, you, and Brooke, were all high at the time. So that's
we were.
Yeah.
It was one of those nights.
Yeah.
I just finished watching some Beavis and Butthead, so
So the way you pitched it to me, first you texted me right as I was going to bed, and you said, "Hey, I think I have a good idea. I think this is the one, Neil." And then I was like, "Oh, I can't wait. I'll find out tomorrow." And then I had a busy day and I couldn't talk to you all day. And then finally you called me while I was with my mother and my sister going to the grocery store. And I just kind of sat in the car listening to your pitch while we were driving to the grocery store. And then I said, "Yeah, that sounds fun. We'll do that." And then I pitched it to them to see what they thought. And they asked the same thing. They're like, "Is this making fun of addiction?" And I said, No, we're going to make that joke. It's okay if we make a reference to it being dodgy in the thing.
We had that idea, the Midnight Society, Are You Afraid of the Dark closer. We've legitimately had that joke for a decade. It's been sitting in a joke list for 10 years. And this was sort of the perfect tee up for that payoff. So that way, if the crack joke, which is it's low hanging fruit. It's kind of a bottom of the barrel to make fun of crack, I guess. But we had the payoff. We had the payoff of the Midnight Society gag. And who doesn't want to get together with their friends and film by a campfire for 3 hours?
For those who don't know, every episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark would be bookended by them telling a campfire story, and just there's a sense memory of a story ending and then cross-fading back to the storyteller around a campfire that just feels like such a perfect trope. And our idea for breaking that was doing it twice in a row and having it kind of a nesting doll of stories. But I think what made it into a proper joke is the fact that it's a bad story, and then the twist becomes someone else telling the tale of the bad story.
Right.
No.
So
instead of just being a waste of time.
Why was this the idea we went for? We have other scripts, we have other stories we've wanted to do. Corey and I probably talk once a week about we got to get the gang back together and make a movie. Why do we think High Moon was the one we went for?
We love Halloween, and we had not done a Halloween project in at least 2, 3. We had not done a Halloween project in way too long.
Mm-hmm.
To be fair, we've probably done enough spooky videos for a lifetime.
True, but we love spooky is our seasoning. Spooky is our spice. If there's one genre, gun to the head, ride or die, it's spooky. It's Halloween. And to lose that one flavor. And we were like, listen, we tried to get a decent Halloween video, and we didn't. This time, Halloween, on time, go.
If we had our own sitcom on a TV network, we'd argue in pitch for every episode to be a Halloween special. And the last several Octobers, we've talked, it'd be really cool if we put this idea together in time for Halloween. We only have 2 weeks. We don't have enough time to do it the right way. And to Ryan's point, this was the first time the plants aligned. We're like, all right, yeah, let's do this one. It fits the season. We can get it out a week before Halloween if we put our heads together and just sprint. And honest to God, we're recording this Post-Mortem podcast reflecting on the making of the movie, and it's 70% done at best.
I was really surprised that you guys wanted to bite this all off as quickly as you could. Kevin, when you called me, I was working a music festival, and you had been texting me all weekend. You need to get on the phone with me. I need to tell you about this. I can't text it to you. And when you told me, I thought you were talking about next Halloween or I was he can't be talking about doing this in 2.5 weeks. No way. Impossible.
It's one of those things that if we were 18, 19 years old, we would do the entire movie in one night, poorly. It would sound bad. It would look bad.
And we'd be so proud of it, too.
We'd be so proud of it. And nowadays, all I do is look at our footage and scrutinize every inch of it. But with this one thing that expedited the process was, we're better filmmakers every year. I'd like to think we get better. And we also photographed this one in a way that required the least amount of color correction and just general post-production meddling. We lit it properly for the most part. We did a lot of interesting garish colored lighting on set. We did the one big dialogue scene. We were we weren't syncing anything. We were just using boom mics wired right into the camera, which sounds obvious, but frankly, we've been shooting with DSLR and mirrorless cameras for the last 10 years. So we're always doing dual system or ADR. We just did a lot of on-set work to ensure everything was captured in camera, the effects, the lighting, the smoke work. So when we went to edit it together, there wasn't a whole lot of the usual, all right, now we have to generate this monster in a computer, or this set has to be extended in After Effects. There was none of that this time.
Yeah, it's not that intricate a project in the end. And it looks really good, I think.
There are those who would call such a thing being an adult.
What do you mean? Just doing the work on the day, Ryan, and not setting it off for later?
Of course,
Yeah.
yeah. Prep work, lighting work, sound work. Yeah, just doing the labor, being ready for what you need to do. Again, even with a lack of storyboards. Spoiler alert. Sorry for the audience
Or
at home,
script.
but yeah, there are those who wouldn't even think we didn't have enough storyboards, and by not enough, I mean we didn't. But that's
that is the funny.
this looks again not to do too much patting on the back. I'm so happy with how this looks. It looks awesome.
Yeah. What were you saying, Neil?
Well, first of all, I think that's Corey. We owe Corey a lot of thanks for that, because just having a fourth person on set, or even a third person, because I wasn't there for one day, Ryan wasn't there for another day. But Corey, you were there for every day of filming, correct?
Yeah, I was, and it's funny because Ryan's saying we were adults about this, but there were definitely times I felt like I was not an adult when I was up till literally 2:30 in the morning, running around a warehouse, doing weird shit out in the street and whatnot.
Yeah.
Which hats off to Dan for staying up all hours of multiple nights and going for insane drive homes every single night. I felt bad, but I also was very glad that you were there for all of that, because I don't know, I think it added to it.
Yeah, Dan lives at least an hour away
Yeah.
from where we were filming most of this project. It took 3 nights, and to keep things moving,
That was it. Wow.
we
It feels like so much longer.
to do the big dialogue scene. We shot that with 2 cameras, just to get double the coverage in half the time. We used obviously a slider.
It was pretty
kind of
neat. We just left the slider running on like auto, and it was just shifting left and right while we did our thing, and we just kind of hoped that we'd catch a good angle every now and then, and it worked.
Yeah, we lit that. We spent the most amount of time on set for the big shoots just setting up lights, like finding, all right, here's our 180 line, here's our key light, here's our edge light, go. And then once all the lights were set up, actually recording just came down to our own acting and improv ability. But, we're paying for it a little bit in the edit because now we have to solve some editing problems.
We always do.
Yeah, but like just having battery powered lights and V-mount batteries and wireless monitoring and all that stuff. We have like a video village now on set when we make these. We have a 16-inch wireless monitor that can always show the whole crew what's being captured on, camera, which seems, that's something that big movies do. That's something that television does, but typically you don't get with short, dumb YouTube sketch comedy videos. But it does save a ton of time. It lets everyone get their eyeballs on what's being shot, and everyone can chime in. And, I think with this project, you can feel everyone's wrinkles, everyone's fingerprints on the jokes and the texture of the movie. I don't know. Do you all feel like you got elbow room to improv and put ideas into the movie?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, and I think especially that first night when we were filming around the campfire, and we had these colored lights all over the place and an outdoor fog machine, which I don't think we've ever been able to use before, right? Like fog outdoors.
You know what, Neil? That's a little segue there. Corey, how does the fog machine work? Your fog machine.
It's a specific type of fogger. It's a cold fogger.
Well,
right?
yeah, it's like
Bingo.
a fog chiller of some sort. So like I looked up some designs online and was like, I could build something like this. The idea is like fog is a gas, and if you can get it to be colder than the air around it, it's going to be low. It's going to sit down lower on the ground. So it's essentially a whole pathway of tubes and stuff inside a couple of trash barrels that are all glued together and then like expanded foamed so that they're insulated like a big giant cooler. And you fill it all up with ice, and as the fog goes through this whole, all these pathways and stuff like that, it slowly chills it. Which when it's windy out doesn't really help much. But like I did, like, I don't know, the fire stuff, there's some shots that like I think it really came out cool looking. It like kind of helped. There's a couple of shots where like the werewolf kicks down the door that I think it helped a lot, where it kind of
absolutely
kept the fog like a little bit lower in the shot and kind of like kept like Dan's upper torso and like the wolf itself like crisp, which was nice. It was also just like, it was nice to have, it's also like I'm using like a big 1600 watt fogger, so I was able to just kind of like let it go while we were outside. I ran through like 2 gallons of fog that night when we were doing the fire stuff, which is like more fog than I think I've ever used my entire life.
When we were doing the big werewolf scene, we filmed that in my house, and we were setting up the cold fogger and getting ready to do the shot where Dan pushes over the door. And I thought for a moment, I should probably turn on the heat in my house. Like I have central air. It'll make the house hot real quick. It'll make the fog get lower because the pressure difference. And then I realized that we were all tired, and Dan was like covered in like black face paint and all that stuff, and KY jelly all over his hands and teeth. I'm like, you know what? It's fine. It doesn't. We don't have to make it hotter in here. We don't need to sweat on this one.
For that shot, me and Dan, like, not only could we not see each other in that room before the door got knocked down, I couldn't like see my hand in front of my face. We had that much fog in the freaking room.
I had to be up right against the door just to push it over, because I pushed it over for the shot, and I had to be right up on it because with the mask and then all the fog right in front of me, it was impossible to see.
the door coming down is such a cool visual, but that's actually probably a good segue to get us into. Let's break this down into the 3 days of shooting. Number 1, Campfire. Number 2, Warehouse. Number 3, the house in Randolph. And do we want to do it in chronological order of when we shot, or do we want to do them in chronological order of how they are in the video?
That's the order we shot them. So yeah, like the big Midnight Society night. We picked our date. We picked the date that we knew all the principal actors could be there, i.e. the 3 of us, Ryan, Neil, and Kevin. And then we reached out to Julie Becker because she was obviously the best possible choice to play the cool kid that tells the good ghost story. And she lives in New York, but just so happened to be coming through New England that week. We really lucked out there. And then we were able to get Emmy, which was awesome, and Max, which is great, and my girlfriend Stacy. We wanted Ming in the video, but she had to go on parental duty for a moment.
Yeah, she had to get Darcy to sleep.
It was just Cameo City, that one little bit.
Yeah, it worked out nicely that Julie just happened to be in town, and my family's yard was available, and it was not a rainy night, so we were able to do a real fire. And this has nothing to do with what made it onto the final movie, but when we first started the fire and the fog machine, everyone just wanted to come outside and see how cool it looked in the yard, including Darcy. And it was magical for her. And we all got like really nice pictures and stuck them up on our Facebook and stuff.
It was Instagram City. It was begging for it. You bring up Darcy. Neil's daughter is 4 years old as of this recording. And it dawned on me while we were setting up lights and getting everything ready. I looked over at Darcy having an absolute ball, just diving into the fog, and like she could get on all fours and disappear into it. And then when she'd stand up, you'd suddenly see her. So she would like roar like a monster and such. And I thought out loud, man, how cool is it from her POV to have a bunch of these uncle figures in her life making a werewolf movie in her backyard. She's going to remember this forever. But of course she can't watch the damn movie.
I'm going to make a cut where
the secret is crack.
I'm going to make a cut where there's no crack.
How?
He turns into a werewolf, and then he howls, and that will be enough.
And
for
that's
her,
the
I
bad
think.
story.
And then it cuts to her father and his friends arguing around a fire.
Yeah, she's 4. This is about nothing makes sense to her.
This is true. I feel like there were a lot of like early like children's horror movies that I saw when I was like her age or maybe a little bit older than her that like things just didn't click in my head like and it's not that I didn't understand it, it's that it didn't really matter that I didn't understand it, and it was just like the visuals and like the atmosphere of the movies. So like I think the fact that there is no correlation between moon rocks and what the werewolf needs them for would be fine with her.
Dan, you were adamant that you play the werewolf. You asked me 3 times before I was like, because I kept going like, yeah, like kind of hand waving it, like, yeah, totally. But it wasn't until,
And we're all very happy that you did.
yeah,
Very happy.
the reason I was sort of hand wavy about it was, well, let's wait until we film this first scene. And we filmed the first scene, and that's when it became a little more rubber meeting the road. Like, okay, Dan, we need you now. we're a third done with making the movie. Can you play the werewolf?
Yeah, no, I think the reason I asked if I could play the role was simply because I think it's been a while since I did a video project with you guys. And Kevin, you're always like bugging me in like the middle of like someone else's wedding. Like, hey, you free right now? If you could 30 minutes down to Randolph, we can film this. I'm like, Kevin, our timelines are just not syncing up here. So I was like, hey, I just started a new job. I just moved. I'm now like settled into a few different things. I'm like, I have time. It's a werewolf movie. These are going to be filmed at night. I can make myself available at night. And I was like, come on, this is it. This is the one.
And to Ryan's point earlier about just getting a Halloween movie done, it feels good to be doing something seasonal, and to hopefully we get it out the week prior to Halloween. That's the plan anyway. I don't know, it just felt kind of fun just to run through Spirit Halloween, grab costume parts and cheapo makeup and all that jazz. I mean, we got through that Midnight Society night pretty painlessly. I do think we didn't get enough coverage of how sick the woods looked with the ground fog. Like we were I put 150-watt light out in the middle of the woods to catch the fog in between all the ferns and trees, and you can really only drink it in 1 or 2 shots in the final movie, but it's intentionally out of focus. Like, it was shot like a portrait. So I don't know. I think we have some like smartphone videos. I'll throw in this behind the scenes podcast on YouTube so you can see a bit more of it. But yeah, all those Instagram photos we took, those took advantage of the cold fogger better than the movie, I think.
Well, I think we played around in the fog in the woods for like an hour and a half, and then by the time we went to go film, we're like, all right, we've had enough of this. Like we don't care. Like, yeah, whatever. We've got the pictures already.
Yeah.
Well, something I had not planned for was we'd hoped to move the fire from one point, of the initial storytelling to the storytelling of the storytelling, and it sounded great on paper, but then moving a fire pit that weighed like 50 to 60 plus pounds, like David Carradine in Kung Fu, of like, by the way, it's like 300 degrees right now. Like, yeah. Oh, by the way, it's a giant metal pot. It's on fire, and you can either like move it like a Kung Fu master, or, by the way, you can't move that right now because it will burn everything you have.
Well, the initial idea was to do Campfire A in one location and Campfire B in another. So when we cut from one to the other and did the transition, it wouldn't be confusing to the audience. And then we just plumb ran out of time. The day prior, I was working. I think Ryan was working. It was just hard to like just set aside time. Like, okay, we'll just build a second set in another backyard somewhere close by. And like, my house is like 45 minutes away from Neil's parents' house, So like we couldn't just like that we couldn't just like pull that off. That's a huge Herculean task to get everyone to caravan across Massachusetts in the middle of the night. So we just dealt with it. Hopefully it's not visually confusing to the audience. Whatever.
I don't think
it can be less than perfect. It's a movie about a guy smoking moon rocks.
Everyone was curious. My parents were going to bed, but they like at one point woke up and like the lights were all sorts of crazy colors out their window, and my mom was like, "Oh, there's aliens in the backyard." Like, speaking of aliens, night 2, NASA headquarters.
Right.
I was not there for this particular shoot.
Yeah, we really only had 2 options for that location. We knew that location had to bring some visual punch to the final movie, so it was basically either going to be where Corey works or where I work. And where I work is a bit more of like a corporate like skyscraper right on the ocean, where NASA is, right? And Corey has a warehouse available to him, which we used before in Beyond Believability Factor False. And yeah, we just kind of said, screw it, it's gonna be in that warehouse, let's go for it, let's just run and gun. We knew like the 4 sections we had to get for that opening scene. I
felt bad because like you had like some really like grandiose like visions for that opening at your office, Kevin. And I remember you telling me about some of it. You're like, oh yeah, he's going to have a rope, and like maybe we'll have him like Mission Impossible scaling the building, and then he can like knock out like a security guard. And, like,
I had a whole plan.
You had a whole plan, and the whole time you're telling me this, and I'm like, yeah, we don't like if you want this by Halloween, that's not happening.
What basically happened was
that's not going to happen.
What basically happened was I had this idea because I have access to the exterior of this skyscraper in Boston, and I had a whole plan. I wrote out like a shot list. I'm like, yeah, we're gonna get like a rope ladder and shoot it in a way that makes it look like Dan just climbed this building, and we'll get Boston and the skyline behind him. It's gonna look great. And then I got a promotion at work. And I looked in the mirror and I said, I can't do this at work. I can't bring 2 or 3 of us there and like a smoke machine and a werewolf costume and KY jelly and strobe light. I can't do that.
You'll make the news.
I will. It would have looked great. It was too high key for that environment, even at night. So maybe some other time. So yeah, we went with a more conservative approach. It still looks cool. I think we're going to end up leaning into the humor of it being at NASA more than I wanted to because the joke really should be dry and playing it straight until the reveal that it's about a werewolf waiting once a month
smokes
to
crack.
smoke moon rock. He can only do it once a month.
I don't know. Tried to steal moon rocks from NASA. I think is pretty ridiculous.
It's
I think
ridiculous.
you got to lean into it.
It's ridiculous, but like I went into it thinking like I got to shoot this like a D grade Breaking Bad opener, and we
I think you
did.
succeeded. I think.
Yeah, you nailed that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
it's-
think the location's a problem though, because it does feel like one of the like lesser maintained NASA
Yeah.
storage buildings, and you do have like the kind of end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, style crate, storage going on in there, which I think
Right.
works pretty well. I gotta ask, it's not in the rough edit that we've watched, but are you gonna have the Apollo 13 joke?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I love that joke.
That's a great joke.
You
Ditto.
told me not to put it
Ditto.
in the movie.
I think I was not sure, but like the more I thought about it, the funnier it is.
Well, when we got there, the fun thing about that warehouse set is we all knew that Raiders look. We all had it in our mind's eye. So that was probably the shot we worked hardest on. It was probably almost an hour to get that one wide shot of Dan walking through the warehouse and then noticing the aisle labeled NASA. I bought a bunch of NASA stickers and we just slapped them up in a few shots because I didn't want to have to comp them in later in After Effects. But like NASA logos, that is. But we did every trick we could to make the warehouse look as big as possible. I think we shot that at 17 millimeter, like that wide shot of Dan walking. And then we put a bunch of fog in the place, of course. We fogged it up to kind of, lower the contrast inverse square law wise, the further away you got from the camera. So things further away were occluded by smoke and things closer had like kind of a fine mist. We backlit Dan with, it was like a 2700 Kelvin light. We did all these things to, to make Dan's shadow go across the floor towards the camera. Everything we could to make the warehouse look bigger than it really was. Right. And that's why that shot took as long as it did, but it's the coolest shot in the movie. Right? I don't know. What do y'all think that's the best visual in the movie?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in that warehouse before, and it didn't feel like anywhere I'd been seeing it.
No.
Yeah, I'd agree. That's probably the coolest shot in the movie as well. Like if you look at a still at it, it's everything from the composition to just like the way the lights and shadows are playing, or just like what is this film? Like, oh, this is something you'd like if something would release to say, come watch this.
This can't become asinine. When we were setting that up, we had these cool little 1 foot long RGB tube lights, these awesome Godox lights I love. And I remember at one point just handing them to Ryan going like, let's find a place to put these, because this blue light's going to be the opposite color as this like gold in the background here. And we just like made a silhouette out of crap on one of the down one of the aisles in the warehouse.
Yeah.
Like little stuff like that. We just kept this is one of those projects that you really have to obey that 80-20 principle of you're quickly going to get 80% there, but do you really need to go to 100% on every shot, every visual, every take? You just got to kind of settle and keep moving, right? Because this thing isn't Lawrence of Arabia, but it punches above its weight visually, which is always the thing. It's my complex.
when I was showing this to Ming, she just like kept muttering and like kind of like cursing the film. Like, this is like every time it looked good, she got mad. It was fun.
That's perfect.
Well, that's the name of the game.
Yeah.
The first shot we did is Dan walking down an aisle in between cubicles, and there's some pretty funny behind the scenes footage of I bought these cans of aerosol atmosphere, I guess you'd call it. They're basically fog in a can. It's like for wedding photographers when they want to get God rays of sunlight or something, but they don't want to bring a fog machine. And we would basically use Corey's cold fogger for most shots, but whenever we just needed to kind of paint in a little more fog, one of us would spray it in. But the very first shot, Ryan was, we'd call speeding on the camera, and Ryan would walk backwards through the office, just kind of spraying up and down, up and down, up and down. Then he'd get off camera, we'd give a 3 count, and then Dan would do his action. In that first shot with the slider, once we had that take and we were doing playback, we were off to the races. Like, okay, yeah, this looks like a late 80s Terminator knockoff that would go straight to cable. This is what we want. Let's keep moving.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the rain was probably like when we were getting towards the end there.
That
trying
was
to-
real rain, right? Like
that was that was real rain, which was a
Yeah.
problem because we had to stop a shot because the camera was just totally exposed because we weren't prepping for it.
Yeah, the rain kept coming and going, and we ended up painting ourselves into a corner because that first shot of Dan in the car with the headlights on looks so good, but the rest of that exterior scene, there wasn't that much rain. So there's going to be some post-production trickery to make it look like it was raining
Yeah.
harder. Hopefully it looks okay.
That was also like the last stuff that we shot because it wasn't dark enough out when we had started. Like when everyone showed up and we kind of like, set up base camp.
Bingo.
It was like, all right, well, it's not dark enough out. There's still some people lingering around in the parking lot. We'll wait until the end of the night. And then it was like 1:30 in the morning, and we were all grumpy.
I was the
yeah,
worst.
we-
I was the angriest because of the damn rain, and I was like
mean-
muttering like I was mad because we were filming the first shots of this movie last, and we were just depleted energy wise. It was raining. One piece of equipment wasn't cooperating with me. We had this battery issue with one camera. And I was just muttering like, first shot of the damn movie, it's going to look the worst. It's the crappiest shot of the movie. But it looks fine. I got over it. I honestly, like, no offense to Neil because he wasn't present, but that warehouse shoot, I felt like a kid in a candy store. There were numerous times we were setting up takes, and I looked around at, like, Ryan adjusting a prop and, like, Dan walking through what he was going to be doing action-wise, or Corey cooking up an idea of like, oh, why don't we have the slider go towards this window and, we'll make it look all Kubrick. Let's put this magnetized light in the ceiling so Dan has a little red highlight when he walks by. Like, we just felt like we had this great canvas with this movie, and that night in the warehouse was probably the best example of it.
And then it just
Well,
kept
I
going
get
until
to
we were angry.
see, I get to skip the part where everyone gets angry and grumpy,
Yeah.
and I just get to enjoy the nice footage.
Yeah, that scowl in the first shot.
That was
It's
honest.
It's honest, but also it was acting, but also it was like, Kevin, like, come on, we got to finish this up because he's also yelling to me from like 15 feet away, going, "Turn off the lights," and I can't hear it because there's rain still falling on the thing, and it's only how the car shut.
My favorite, and it's not funny, like it's funny looking back at it, but there was this back and forth between Kevin and Dan where Dan had to exit the car. Kevin kept using, because it was Kevin's car, Kevin kept using his keys to lock the not to lock the
yeah.
car, but to turn the lights off on the car
'Cause it was quicker.
which I get it, but it locked the door. And Kevin's like, come out, and Dan's like, I can't. And Kevin's like, just come out. And Dan's like, I can't come out the door. It's not like
Dan's like opening the car door and the car alarm's going off.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that happened too.
Yeah.
I think I hit the hit the slide at one point coming out.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was 2:00 in the morning on a work night,
Yeah.
on a school night.
Yeah.
Yep.
So after Ryan and Dan left, because we finished the filming with Ryan and Dan, Kevin was like pretty much like, all right, I'm packing up. I'm going the fuck home. Like, I got to work in the morning. I'm done for the night. We're not getting the last shot. And I was like, I don't think I was like pushy, but I was like, no, Kevin, like it's 2:00. It was like maybe like 2:15, 2:30 in the morning at that point. I'm like, Kevin, I'm here. It's 2:30 in the morning. We have all the gear. Let's just get the fucking shot.
The
because
shot was the
we don't
exterior
have-
of NASA.
And it was like we don't have we didn't have enough days lined up where we were going to be
Yeah.
able to come back and reshoot this and like get it done in the time frame.
And it
that
probably
it's
wasn't
getting
going to
done.
rain again.
Yeah, so I was like, let's just light this. Let's grab some batteries. Let's just get this done. Get a
Right.
couple of angles, and we'll pick which ones we like or you like good after the fact.
The exterior shot is okay. I wish it looked nicer, but again, just your internal battery. We're getting older, so like when it gets to like 2:30 in the morning and it's raining and you've been like sprinting around and drinking Red Bulls and Gatorade just to keep yourself moving, you kind of hit a wall. But yeah, I got us into this mess. I had to put up with it and get us out of it, I guess, and just shoot something. It's an okay shot. It's fine. It's probably the weakest shot of the movie. The exterior of NASA. The establishing shot of the building, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's good. It's fine.
It gets through.
I think it was
yeah.
I think it was as good as we were going to get unless we spent like an hour and a half, 2 hours trying to get that like 2-second shot.
Now the thing is, though, he said that it's his least favorite shot. So any kid who watched the movie, they're now going to hold that opinion. So expect that in the comments.
I don't know what you're talking. I mean, like you got the whole building in the shot. Like
it's lit. It's the whole thing's there.
I should have shot it with like a 12mm lens on the other side of that tree that's occluding the building. So that way we could have done the RoboCop trick and done a digital matte painting and made the building taller. And it was just one of those things that looking back in it, I knew all these problems because I only had a 17-28 lens on me. It's technical crap.
I don't think I told you this, but I like spent like half an hour in Photoshop trying to like make it look like a bigger building. And
the trees in the way too.
I kind of got a decent matte off of the trees, but it's more just like I don't have any way of making it like using the like existing part of the building to extend it up. I don't know. I could try again, I guess, but
I'm imagining it's at level in Minecraft and you just want to like double the vertical like each floor.
Yeah. No, it just looked like a cartoon. I didn't think anyone would.
I felt like
a
big part of this movie coming off of Shitty Shitty Bang Bang was just trying to, in order to get this thing done in a time frame, also just in order for you to not want to like off yourself, was just having like not an entire 5-minute movie of VFX shots.
Yes.
Like we're like, all right, like, because at one point there was talk about like digitally making like the werewolf's face move and stuff, and it was like,
yeah,
how about no? How about we we try and figure out a way to not do
I thought about doing the thing where we put like a wolf mask on Dan and have like his snout move digitally with some like liquefy tool and After Effects, which isn't even that hard, but it's like it's a snowballing problem. You start to think of all these little digital crutches and you start shooting lazy and you start going, we don't need to get the right color light over here. We'll just rotoscope it in. And we thankfully avoided that. We got almost everything diegetic, which is great. It certainly makes editing a lot funner.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of others. That brings us to night 3, where we used all the tricks in the book, all the practical effects tricks I think that we've ever wanted to use. We used on night 3. Filming at your house in Randolph.
We took the door down. By we, I mean I'm afraid I wasn't there. I wish I was, but night 3 looks to me like the most fun. Let's go for it.
I've been renovating a house I bought about a year ago, and there's this one door that needed to go. So we said, let's just take the damn hinges off, and we'll have the wolf push it down. And that whole scene was just again, no storyboarding, no scripting. It was just a very loose. Well, we need to get from A to B to C, and I thought up some fun trick shots that I wanted to do. The head shaking one I was excited about doing. We didn't even do a camera test. We just did that shot where Dan is sitting in the Venetian blind light and his head shakes left to right. The way it works is you film it twice on a motorized, robotically controlled camera. So the camera can move across the room at a repeatable speed in a repeatable position, which is something that visual effects companies kind of pioneered in the mid to late 80s. Think Back to the Future 2. Whenever you have an actor interacting with himself in that movie and the camera's moving, like Tom
motion
Wilson
control. But this is a much simpler version of it, where it's basically just a platform between two tripods that it's moving on, but it's very consistent.
It's very consistent, and it's only like a $300 motorized slider that I was using for this. And I had the idea come to me. I'm like, let's have Dan shake his head left to right with the mask and without, and then we can do some cool stuff where maybe it just crossfades, or maybe we do like some flash frames or whatever, and we'll undercrank it. We'll shoot it at like 8 frames a second and make it go 3 times the speed in post. So we did one take with Dan without the mask and one with the mask, and after those 2 shots, Dan was getting nauseous because he had to shake his head for like minutes at a time, because when you're shooting for fast motion, you have to shoot, 3 times the footage, because then you're going to speed it up 3 times, right? So poor Dan's shaking his head left to right, left to right, left to right for one take for like 3 minutes, right? So we only got to do the setup twice. We did 2 takes with the mask, 2 without, and we probably could have done it faster. But I think the effect's cool. It reminds me of that scene in Inner Space I showed all of you, where what's his name? What's that actor's name? He's in all of Joe Dante's movies. Star Trek guy.
Is it Robert Picardo?
I think it is. Yeah. Who ironically has the best werewolf transformation in any film in The Howling.
From The Howling, yes.
Yeah, the thing about filming that scene, I was already like I woke up that morning sick, and I was good by the time we got to the shoot, but I just wasn't feeling well.
Jeez.
And how I
Thank you, Dan.
it's fine. But what I remember from that also is I'm shaking my head back left and right, and Kevin's like, "Okay, we're gonna keep you on the time. We're gonna let you know when it's going." You're like, "Okay, you're 10% done." Then you would just start talking to Neil and Corey. Not about the shot, not about what's going on. They were just
I
shoot
felt
the shit
bad.
about something and laugh. And I'm like, "Can I get a time check?" And they're like, "Oh, it's like 60%. All right, back to whatever."
Anyway,
movie.
Corey, I think Natalie Portman's only been in like 2
That
good
was
movies.
it. You're talking- the Portman talk, yeah. So,
But
I think I
what
see
else?
myself sometimes mouth like time in like some of the frames.
if you're looking for it, there's like one frame. The what else did we have to do? We had to do some specific lighting. We wanted that Venetian blind look, even though the window has no blinds.
That's probably my favorite joke of the movie. I'll be honest, or like one of them.
It's a
Like,
striped
I don't think
moon.
you checked with me. I think you just you slapped that filter on the light outside, and then I'm like, why is
Yeah.
it Venetian blinds? All right, I guess we're doing this way. But it does lead to there's like a brief moment in when he's transforming, and like you like jerked the handheld camera up, and it like the light passes through the Venetian
Right.
filter really quickly, and it like does a strobe thing, and it looks awesome.
Yeah, I was getting frustrated that, I had bought this like focusing element to put on this RGB light. It can do any color and all that. And, we did this neat thing where during one of the first shots of that scene, Neil, you were controlling the light and you went from tungsten to daylight color temperature. So it looked like the moon was coming out, right? But I noticed this frustrating problem where the light, even with the focusing element to make the Venetian blinds look sharp, it wasn't punching. You were losing a lot of the lumens from the lamp. And I was sitting there like angrily, like muttering out loud, like, why aren't we getting God rays? Why isn't the light punching through the smoke? And I realized it halfway through that night that because that light is a red, green, blue element light, it's an RGB light that can make any color. That means there's kind of this mosaic of colored LEDs on the light, right? And they all go through this hard layer of opaque diffusion to kind of, so when you look at the light, you don't see these spots of color. You just see like the one color it's trying to achieve, right? So that makes the light inherently softer, still bright, but harder to focus. It was a cool lesson to learn from the movie. Like once I realized what the problem was, I was actually relieved. I'm like, oh, that's why we're not getting the God rays. Oh, I could have used a different light and just gelled it and gotten it. But because we weren't getting the pronounced God rays, when we went to do Dan turning into the werewolf and moving across the room and kind of thrashing his body and screaming, I made a note to like, okay, I'm going to like just cheat and get like an angle that shows off this damn Venetian blind light with the smoke coming through it, because damn it, I spent all this time and effort trying to get that look and it just wasn't happening. I hope that made sense.
It did to me, kind of. And side note, that window, there was a really cool spider just outside.
There was.
I don't think
We
you
got a
can
lot
see
of
it in the-
pictures of that spider.
Yeah. The spider was big. Anyway, moving on. We get to...
Well, let's talk about like we knew we wanted to do some. I mean, I think we were on the same page. We wanted it to look like Aliens, right? Like I always talk
Yeah.
about
or
James
Gremlins,
Cameron.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Plenty of KY jelly.
A lot of
Yeah,
KY
it looks-
jelly.
It
Okay,
looks
yeah.
fun.
I think
That close-up side profile shot of the mouth with the KY jelly on it. I don't know if Dan like meant to like kind of be shaking a little bit, but like,
Yeah, I did.
okay, thank you, because it
'Cause
looks so much like that. Oh, it's so alien. It's so good.
I think
it's so good.
The first couple shots, I think I just did it straight, like up, down, and then I
Yeah.
was like on the third shot when I think Kevin finally got the lighting he wanted. I'm like, no, I'm doing this all wrong. I'm gonna go for the shake, and I think that's the
Yeah.
take that's in the
It's so good.
there's some
final.
great behind the scenes footage of Neil just caking on this like KY jelly, and I'm
It's
like, Neil, we
personal
got 3
lubricant.
bottles of it. Just keep pouring it on. Like use all of it. Don't worry
Yeah.
about getting the floor messy. It's my house. We can make it dirty here.
Yeah.
And that was one of the shots that everyone knows instinctively what it's supposed to look like. So we got to a point where Corey was holding up like a towel to flag the light just the right way, and Neil's pouring it on the teeth because it's just such an intimate macro close-up. You have to get every major detail right. And we had like that amber light through the doorway. That way we didn't just have blue light. That way you could, that way it wouldn't look like an early 2000s movie where we just tinted the color and called it a day.
We got
Yeah.
like really intimately close with each other a couple of times, or
Oh, yeah.
like at least like you, Kevin, Neil, and Dan got really, really close. And like that shot where where he transforms and he turns around.
Yeah.
Like, not only was the lens maybe 3 inches off of his face, but
Yeah.
like you all were like a football huddle. Like you guys were so.
We had to
close.
do like 6 takes because in 1 or 2 takes, like, like you could see Neil was hand holding the Morticia Adams
Yep,
light,
yep.
trying to get like that vertical eye line, and he had to be right on top of Dan for it to be sharp. But yeah, we did that reverse, we did it forward, we did it undercranked, we did it normal speed. I don't even know what take we're going to use in the final movie, but if we use that undercranked reverse acted shot, that's straight out of Evil Dead 2. Like, that's exactly how they photographed some of that movie.
Which
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
That's my fave. So I mean, go for it.
Ryan, you just saw the rough cut a couple hours ago.
Yes, I did.
What do you think of that scene? Like having not been there, that's the one bit you weren't there for.
I wish I could have been there all 3 days.
Yeah.
But my first question is, number one, Dan, how did it feel with the contacts in your eyes? How could you even see what was happening?
That was it was an amazing experience because that was visual effects.
Oh, you didn't have contacts.
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
Well, props to you, Kevin, for color correcting.
Then
his
you got
eyes,
to
yeah.
see everything. Very
I
good.
fooled Ryan. No, we that was
We discussed
Yeah.
contacts, but fooled me.
I was trying to play like advocate for Dan on that one, where like Kevin was like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna get Dan to wear contacts for this shot. I need to buy contacts," and I was like, "Does Dan wear contacts?" He goes, "No," and I go,
in fact, he tried once and he said it didn't work
yeah,
out so
and I'm
well.
like, Kevin, maybe this isn't a good idea because like this is going to be really uncomfortable. It's going
Yeah.
to be like we're probably going to go until some ungodly hour of the morning. Like maybe don't make him try to wear contacts in
Yeah.
like your bathroom that might not have a mirror in it at the moment.
It's funny. You look back on the B and C grade horror movies and monster movies of the 80s, like, something like Silver Bullet, right? And, the monsters don't look that good. They really aren't. They're just lit well.
Yeah.
And things like caking on KY jelly can make a $40 werewolf mask look
Yeah.
okay. It looks okay.
Well, that was like a big. I know you were very like gung ho about trying to find like an expensive
Silicone
werewolf,
mask,
like
yeah.
a silicone mask.
Yeah.
You're like, let's see if we can find something for like maybe like $800 or like $900,
Yeah.
something sub $1,000,
and nothing would show up in time. Everything needed like 2 months.
Nothing would
headway.
show up in time, and anything that you wanted like real punched hair on, it was going to be like
1,500.
it was at least.
Yeah.
And I was like, Kevin, if we just use something for like $40 or $50 and you light it well, that's all that anyone else used to do. Like you look at a lot of these, like you were saying, like Silver Bullet, like you look at a lot of these effects without the lighting and they don't look good. It's all about like picking the right angles and just like
Showing the least amount you
Yeah.
need to, and yeah.
movie magic.
Yeah, when you take still photos of Cujo, it looks really comically
Yeah.
bad. And then Silver Bullet,
Silver Bullet's
Yeah.
werewolf is famously shitty looking until the very end of that movie. We got to watch Silver Bullet sometime. I've been thinking about that movie lately.
I wonder why.
I'm down. I'm down. I have it in the other room.
Down two.
Go watch
That's the
it.
one with Gary Busey in it.
Yeah, Gary Busey builds a super powered motorcycle wheelchair for a paraplegic 12-year-old.
Yeah. And they hired two different, I can't remember the effects companies, like the effects houses, but there's two different companies that they hired to do the effects. One did the werewolf that doesn't look too hot.
Yeah.
And there was another effects house that did this like nightmare scene that
Right.
the kid has. And the nightmare scene looks
the church,
Yeah,
infinitely
it
better.
looks
infinitely better.
terrifying.
And there's
It's
way
so
more
good.
werewolves.
Yeah, it's so good, and it's like a dream sequence essentially.
I don't want to go off too far in Silver Bullet, but holy hell, watch that movie. If only
great.
for the scene where Gary Busey's playing cards with his nephew and he starts singing a song about how he hates all these other baseball teams. Oh my God. Just look that up. Just put in YouTube Gary Busey piss on the Mets. I guarantee. I've been singing that song for like a month now.
Piss with 2 S's for those of you, on YouTube.
The Latin spelling.
Sorry.
There's 2 S's.
Okay, let's get back on track.
The fun of making this movie really was just everyone on the day going, hey, what would be a cool way to like crank up this shot? Like, what's like a fun way to like make the warehouse look bigger? And like, Corey, you had that idea in the warehouse shoot to turn the ceiling fans off right before recording, so the fans would look like they were moving slow.
Yeah.
As they have a standard speed of spinning, and yet it was too fast, but spinning at a, what we'll call, shall we say, a television speed, is a much more visually like fun. It's a good.
They don't actually do their job as a fan at those speeds that you always see on television, but they look cool. So
more important,
Yeah.
more important than anything, they look cool.
Yeah. I really enjoyed watching you guys working on the shot where Dan rolls out the
rocks.
Because it was very tricky to get it so the hand, like the glove, didn't look like a glove. And it's still like, I haven't seen the final shot yet. It still might kind of look like a glove, but there was like that was a real dance with the lighting and the angle.
That
we
was a
shot
chore.
That was like really cool to watch. Like you guys work on that
We
together.
kind of approached it from one angle, and we got like 2 shots into the scene before we realized, oh, if we light Dan this way, yes, it looks more James Cameron-y, but the second he goes to do anything, you're getting a real big eye full of Dan's gloved hand, like the black like polyester. So we had to like change our key light. We had to reverse the angle and do all this work and reshoot a bunch of that stupid table thing. Like, it was so abbreviated, but little things. You have to make all those concessions to work around the cheap rubber suit stuff, Not that it doesn't look like Aliens or Jurassic Park or whatever, but we tried to, the 80-20 rule, like how quickly can you get this and make it look passable for most audiences, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of 80-20, let's try to do a little help to the kids at home when it comes to, well, I was thinking about, the moon rocks, the Apollo 11, 12, 13. So my LED light, just an old Boy Scout, be prepared, flashlight. But when it comes to capturing light, certain things flicker between the capture of the speed, the frame rate. And we found, this is not going to play well on screen. Kevin, if I may, to set you up, let's teach the kids at home a way of like making sure they avoid the mistakes that we also avoided.
You had this cool LED flashlight that really it just punched through the smoke, and in wide shots where the light was being used more like an effect, like just a beam. Like if you wanted to see a beam of light cutting through the smoke, it was totally fine. But if the light started to become your key light and it started to either get too close to the lens or it was lighting a subject, like say Dan's face, you would see this vertical, not a flicker, but it was like a wave. Yeah. And that's just the,
not interlacing, but a wave.
Yeah. Ostensibly it's the refresh rate of an LED not matching the refresh rate of the shutter of your camera. So you have to adjust the shutter of your camera, which, I mean, we've had to do this dance a few times. The worst we ever had was when we made that movie Year of the Snake, and Neil and I wanted to film this internet research scene with a CRT monitor. And there's all these tricks you can do. It basically comes down to powering the camera off the same power supply the computer monitor is being run on. And that can sometimes cheat the 60 hertz signals to kind of match up.
Cool.
But, in our case, when we filmed our movie and we realized the one shot it was a real problem was when Dan put the flashlight down and aimed it at his own head while he was rustling through the Apollo 11, 12, and 13 drawers. We just did a take where he put the flashlight and we knew we'd cut away. And then when we cut back to Dan, we just put one of those Godox tube lights up off camera, right? And it's just a little cheat, because that was the quickest, dirtiest way to fix that problem. But making sure your lights match the refresh rate of your camera. Yeah, that's why Hollywood movie prop people have to buy special expensive flashlights, In our movie, the closer it became to looking like a real movie, quote unquote, the more those kind of problems stand out, Not Not to keep like circling the drain of the topic, but yeah, we worked around it.
But again, thank you, Kevin. In light of, I think about some 18, 19-year-old, some kids trying their best to go back to the editing lab and go, oh my God, it's just unusable. Like, and then go like, by the way, you just do A, B, C, and the secret is money. That's it. The secret's money.
Yeah.
And it's not a secret, and it's terrible, but it's money.
I think aesthetically, Corey, you said after looking at the footage, you know, when we finished in the warehouse, we were sitting down and going through the dailies together at like 3 a.m.
Yep.
You texted me the next day going, our next movie, we can't use blue. There's too much blue in this.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
So Dan, how was wearing the mask? What was that like?
It wasn't too bad. When Corey first gave it to me, it had like a very like plastic shell inside it, and then latex outside. The one thing that was good was the inside was coated, so I wasn't smelling latex, which you find with a lot of those monster masks. And then there was this little bit that sat on my chin, so I can move the jaw, and it was kind of like almost welded shut. Between takes, I would keep like maybe moving the jaw a bit to try and loosen it. Sure. But to actually like open my mouth for that growl sequence, it was like really me not just going like, but like really stretching like as far down as I can go just to get that little bit that you see, I think, in that shot, and then the when the smoke's coming out of my mouth.
We should talk about how we did that.
Yeah, I was about to say, because like in that sequence, I know you did that test fire before the mouth was open, so all the smoke just stopped at the teeth and then went right into my mouth.
Sorry. I think that was my idea. I really wanted to, I wanted to have actual smoke come out of his puppet mouth when he howled at the moon, and I like was looking around in your garage for like just some pipe because we didn't bring any tubing with us to the shoot, and I ended up like stealing the plastic tubing off like a power washer or like a painter or something.
It's probably I think it was the air compressor for my nail gun.
Something like that. But I just I captured some fog from Corey's fog machine in a plastic bag that my food that day came in, and then I just like snaked it through the mask, and I was just off camera. I was like, next to your butt, and I
were you? I have no idea where you were in space.
And I just waited for you to do the howl, and I squeezed the bag like a bagpipe, and the smoke came out so perfectly.
Yeah, it's a really good exhale.
We totally forgot to frame it in a way that lets us put a digital moon in there. Who knows? Maybe we'll find a way to put it in over the next 3 days.
I have faith in you guys. As I sit here not doing any of that stuff.
The striped moon's low, Kevin.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that like, just to, every time we make one of these movies, my complex, I always try to make it look better than the previous one, which sometimes becomes the ice skating uphill battle. Sometimes it's just fruitless. Like X amount of labor does not result in X amount of obvious improvements on camera. Right. Like little things like the Venetian blind light coming into the scene, that scene where Dan's back home waiting for the full moon, apparently, that required us bringing like a giant ladder outside, like a weighted 4-wheeled ladder, like something you get at a Home Depot. I have at my house.
Well, that was another, like,
we had to get the light high up.
You had to get the light high up. I think at one point you were trying to find some, like, not to say jerry rig, but you were trying to find some, like, maybe if we put the stand on top of this, stand on top of that, and I went in the garage and was like, no, we're taking this, we're bringing it outside, someone give me a hand, we're gonna like just do this so we can get moving on with the shot, we're running behind schedule, and it worked really well.
It was the best way to do it because we needed to get the light far enough away from the house so the gobo would stencil the Venetian blind onto the full window and not just part of the window. We did one cool trick during the Midnight Society scene where it was getting kind of late, and we had to shoot my dialogue and then the reverse where Ryan and Neil are, picking apart my bad story. And Neil, you were the one who said, we got to think of a creative way to shoot this. We can't just move all these props and move all the lights because that's going to take 45 minutes. Mm-hmm. Right? And so what we ended up doing was we sat me down. The lights were already set for me because we just shot Julie's scene. another storyteller shot. We did all my coverage. Then we moved the tree stump that Ryan had brought over, and we moved over Neil and Ryan's chairs to be basically where I was sitting, and then we flipped the Fresnel lights, like the blue moon lights that we had, and the 150 watt RGB light we were using for the fire. We flipped those horizontally, right? So it would match the 180 line of the scene. So I don't know if it's obvious to people, but you guys, we're sitting in the exact same spot. When it cuts from you guys to me, I don't know if it's obvious to the audience that we're sitting in the exact same spot.
No, I didn't
No,
notice
no
that.
one. Yeah, no one would know.
The secret is the spooky sticks.
Yes, honestly, I wanted to bring this up. Ryan grabbed a bunch of spooky sticks like from the woods because we noticed on set that we weren't taking full advantage of the cold fogger, and Ryan
Non-union, they're known as sticks.
Ryan realized if he put some sticks down in the grass, it kind of first off it just looked spooky, and it also accentuated the smoke in a few shots, which was good.
Yeah.
Like that's what I was getting at earlier. Was this short film was a good way for everyone to get their fingerprints on camera. Like there's running up to calling action, I felt like numerous times the crew, like all of us, would have that one little wrinkle to improve the shot, exponentially. Like I think of like 10 of those in this, which is great because what's it going to be? 4 minutes? I think it's going to be 4 minutes. It's a good density, good visual density.
We did make a joke in the group text, but I won't say it now on account of I don't want to ruin it. But
the
4 minutes
runtime, yeah.
yeah,
I like that.
dumb joke.
I like the correspondence that Dan was on double mask duty for this shoot because he was
correct.
not only in the werewolf mask but he was also in the burglar mask for pretty much the entire warehouse shoot.
Yep.
Yeah, Dan, $2.97 on. Oh, they Savers almost threw that mask away.
So which
99 is regular price. 98 means a 6 month in it or win it, or 97 means, yeah, we're about to go out.
Ryan, you are our local Cat in the Hat. No, sorry, right. No, Ryan. You are our local Felix the Cat in that whenever we need a prop, you always have an option. It's ridiculous. I'm not being hyperbolic. Like we thought, well, we need a ski mask. Ryan has one. Okay, well, we need like a werewolf costume. And Ryan's like, I got a backup one. Don't worry, just in case. I got a backup one here.
To be clear on the ski mask, I think it was really just a long hat, and then he cut it into a ski. He had a perfectly long black hat.
I stand by my statement. Ryan provided a ski mask.
Hey, now for $2.99 you get a ski mask. $2.97 you get a long hat. So.
I loved in visually watching the cut now, maybe not so much while filming it, how one of the eyes is way too big than the other ones because we didn't measure it. He just went, where are your eyes? I held my hands. He put tape there and just cut later. And I'm like, I can't see out of this thing.
I'm trying to think of cut jokes that might not be in the movie.
Well, if I may, not a cut joke, but there's a moment. I don't know if I'm. And thank you. By the way, Corey, you took me into perspective for this one. I don't know if I'm either embarrassed or proud of this. At a certain point, shall we say, past midnight in the warehouse, of how do we establish it's NASA? I took a pish pin and a sign of NASA, put it on the wall between like the FMLA, Family Medical Leave Act, and went, bam, it's NASA. And at the time we went, yeah, there, and like, how do we feel about this? Like, is this too cheap? Like, it's not too cheap. It's NASA.
I bought a bunch of these decals that said NASA, various sizes, some of them bigger than others. And yeah, Ryan had one that was, he didn't even peel it off the wax paper. He just tacked it up on the wall. And I thought that was pretty damn funny because by this point in the movie, we've already established that we have NASA decals. I don't know if that's going to end up in the final edit. I think if you pixel peep, you'll notice it.
Exactly.
It's still up in my warehouse.
Another good pixel peeper is when Dan's waiting for the full moon. I don't know if we're going to use the rack focus take or not, but if you look at,
I want it so bad.
If you look at the calendar that says full moon, if you look like 2 days prior on the same calendar, it says steal from NASA, with a bunch of NASA stickers stuck on the gun.
It does. I watched it like 4 times. I didn't. Please, pump that
want
up. I
that
didn't
pumped
see
up.
it, but please.
What do y'all do? You
Yeah.
think that's? Do that's?
Because it even has a badge.
Yeah, I put the stickers. You guys were setting up some. I think you guys setting up the
it's
Venetian
so
blind shot, and I
funny.
was just going through the decals. I went, "Oh, there's a temporary patch. I'll push this on the calendar because it'll be if they do get a shot of this, it'll be funny. Of like, why did he lockpick if he had a badge?
Yeah, I don't know. I love it.
He used the badge the day prior to scout.
Oh, to get the lockpicks from inside.
In the current edit we've all watched, I don't rack focus from Steal from NASA to Full Moon because I kind of wanted the movie to have this comedic nadir before you go over to the rocks and pick up the pipe and all that. So I wanted to play it as straight as we could get away with it. Well, I don't know. If you guys all want, I'll put it back in. I'll put the rack focus in. Because
No, I think you're right. I think it stay focused on the storytelling there. I like the lighter you picked. It's got the Constitution on it, or the Bill of Rights, or something. It's a very It's
Are you able to see that in the shot?
I don't know if you can.
There's one visual gag that's totally lost in the audience because it's not directed super well. But I bought 2 types of white charcoal to be the moon rocks, because that was another discussion too. Ryan was looking through photos of geodes and stuff, going, "Do we want to go big, explorers, kids 80s movie with moon rocks, or do we want them to look moon rocks?"
Yeah, there's a part of my brain with a bunch of a piece of asphalt, a crystal, of this a
ruby.
Is it funnier if all the moon rocks are completely different looking, like a Strangers of the Candy joke? And that didn't play. Moon rocks. The part of the joke of a moon rock is that they're simple, gray, and dull, and worth $2 million. Are they, or is it just a rock? Is that really from the moon? Is it really from the moon? Well, yeah, that's part of the joke of a moon rock. It's like buying land on the moon. It's
Well, but the whole gag, I thought about this a week prior to filming. I got small rocks and big rocks, and I thought we'll use the big rocks for when Dan's a human, and then when he turns into the wolf, we'll use small rocks or scale. And I don't think any of that translates.
I remember we had a couple of discussions where we're gonna do that. We're gonna try and shoot it so that he's lower in the window when he's a human, and when he's the wolf, he's gonna be bigger, and maybe try and it didn't really happen.
Dan, what are the shortcomings do we need to highlight for this podcast?
Oh, I know one. The wolf costume came with a little tail,
Oh yeah.
and you put it on. No one asked you, but you put on the tail, and we were about to shoot the shot of you in the door, and you could just see this tail kind of dangling between your legs awkwardly.
Yeah.
And it just pushed it into fursuit, away from werewolf into fursuit, and we were just get that shit off.
That's too hot topic.
Yeah.
Take that out.
Werewolves don't have tails. I don't know why.
I think one thing it was more of a regret is I think it was between 2 of the takes. I think it was when I take the pipe and the lighter and then I light it. I think it was supposed to just be I pick it up and then we cut to me lighting. You guys were doing something with this shot, and I was just playing with the lighter and mimicking and just trying to entertain myself. Was going fuck, and Kevin or Neil, one of you was just like, fuck, no, we got to film that. That's great. And then I couldn't replicate it because then I was getting too good with it in my KY jelly hand. I kept lighting it every time. No, Dan, do worse. I'm like, I can't do worse.
Jeez, Dan, I didn't even thought about it till again day 3. I wish I was there. Wasn't there, but is KY jelly particularly flammable? I don't know. I hope not.
Yeah,
I really
thought about
you
that.
would know.
It would have been a bad way to find out.
Yeah. I was really impressed by how dexterous you were with those gloves on in general. Just the fact that you were able to unroll the moon rock container sheath, whatever you want to call it. I don't know what it's called, but
Crime kit.
yeah, the crime kit. But the fact that you were able to unroll that, and when you were messing with the lighter, I was like, wow, he's really good. This is impressive.
I was so
werewolf.
worried about both of those shots because I didn't think I was going to be that dexterous. I was like, this is the reveal of the joke. This needs to get done right. So I'm sitting there I think I practiced a couple times I know because I remember Neil kept closing it for me because that was the one thing I couldn't do was close it back up to
Right.
get back to the start of the shot.
Well, because before we started filming to begin with, I gone through like I kind of like not really storyboarded, but I kind of went through all the actions with Kevin, and I was like, I'm realizing like there was how was he getting in, and then there was how is he going to smoke moon rocks?
Yeah.
It was like, oh, he just smokes them. I'm like, but how are you going to film him smoking moon rocks?
You came up, Corey, with this like sleight of hand idea where we'd have him pick up the rocks and then crush them in his hand into a powder, right? Which
Kinda
when
like
you mentioned
the
that
Predator thing.
I
yeah.
immediately thought of the Predator,
Yeah.
and then on the day it was like he'll just stick it in there and go for it.
Yeah.
Like it'll look fine because
Yeah.
that was like one of the last things we shot. We were getting tired, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've
By the way, can we talk about how uncomfortably easy it was through Jeff Bezos and Amazon.com to order a crack pipe? Multiple.
We
in
actually
sets
no,
of
we
6.
forgot to, and
Yeah.
I won't say who, but someone did provide a used non-crack pipe for the shot, and it looks good. It looks like not the kind with the bulb on the end, but it does look like a glass tube.
Oh, the visual absolutely lands. It's just, yeah. You're correct, Neil. No notes. Just don't dig there.
The night we were night 2 when we were doing the warehouse shots, me and Dan were looking up pictures of crack pipes because we realized neither of us really know what a crack pipe looks like.
True. I was like, I have a weed pipe. I can bring that. And I was like, is it comparable? I'm like, oh, not even close.
Yeah, we're looking at pictures. We're like, oh, okay.
It was like that scene in Office Space where they have to look in a dictionary to see what laundering money is.
Money
Like,
laundering.
what does a crack pipe look like?
Yeah.
No, but if you go on Amazon, you look up. Some of them are like advertised as like drink stirrers, but they're just crack pipes. They're all over there.
Oh, wow.
Drink stir / straw. Like, oh, you drink something up through the tunnel.
So I want to bring this up. On our previous Post-Mortem podcast, I begged Ryan, Neil, and Corey to not let me write the next skit. That was a year and a half ago.
How'd we do?
I didn't write a script, so technically it works out.
Based on a story by Kevin James.
I think we're running out of gas,
You
right?
can-
Or do we have everything else to
All right,
really
well,
cover?
Yeah. No, I don't think so. Let's wrap up, guys. It's looking good. I'm excited to publish this video really soon, before Halloween.
Yeah.
And I hope everyone likes it.
Yeah. I'm stoked. I'm really stoked to hear your music, Neil, or like hear the score for this, or how.
Oh yeah, I gotta do that.
I'm really excited.
As we've been known to say, the pandemic is over.
I feel like
But it's not. But the point being, we're finally into a rhythm of getting projects done. We're working together. We're getting old friends back. We're getting so many folks who haven't been in a guaranteed video project in what feels like, again, days, weeks. It feels like forever.
For jinxing
And
us.
they're in
you're
it.
Jinxing us
We're
so
back.
hard.
I know. Like you're just begging for like lightning
it?
to strike
Oh,
my
fuck,
computer or
you're
something.
right.
Yeah.
You're correct.
Yeah.
We can cut that if you must. But it just felt good to have so many folks helping each other again. Just a high fives across the board.
I loved getting Julie and Max in a scene together. Emmy too, of course. But Julie and Max, I've directed them in projects before. We all have. There's something about just the planets aligning and getting that posse of people together. It was very cozy. Everyone was hanging out and just kind of.
It was like hanging out on like a night in Kingston. It kind of reminded me of like that time, like hanging out at the Beale House.
Yep.
For like Flim Fest and that sort of stuff from back in the day. It was like,
Yeah.
it was very like wholesome, and I don't know, I liked it a lot.
Totally. Corey, you've been really pushing us. I'm paraphrasing, but a couple months ago you said something in the lines of, yeah, you keep buying new lenses, Kevin, and new lights, Kevin, but you should probably start buying stuff that makes projects easier to make. Like you were the one that pushed me to get like a wireless HDMI kit and all that stuff. And it goes a long way. And we always have to make compromises. But like you, Corey, you have this production management mindset when you come onto these things with us. And it helps wrangle everything down to a more plausible level of production. And it makes everything a little more hospitable. And it kind of engenders people to get other ideas on the table, and that's not easy. Don't take that for granted.
Well, I feel like all of the guaranteed video projects that I've like been involved in or been there for, I feel like you guys keep like the issues or problems that you run into making these things every time you kind of like learn from them and take that like knowledge on to the next project.
Sure.
So it's definitely like, I don't know, it's really cool like watching you guys, like every one of these videos looks better than the last, and every single time I'm like, wow, excited to see what the next one's gonna hold. Like I don't know, this stuff here that looks absolutely insane, that looks like every single shot is like going to be on Kevin's like demo reel, like legit. Like
Dan, thank you for suffering through playing the wolf and being so gung-ho. It took a lot of pressure off of us. If you didn't play the wolf, it would probably have been me.
Some people think it is you.
Multiple people think it's you, which is weird. Multiple people think it's me, which is very strange. Corey, thanks again. Ryan and Neil, I think people will like this one. Do you think we'll get raked over the coals for making a crack joke?
No.
It's not your first crack joke. I keep saying that. Like
Far from
He's not
it.
even addicted.
Wait, what's our other?
It's once a month.
What's our other crack joke? What am I?
Rodney.
Oh,
I mean,
right.
It's not like, I guess it's not a joke, but it's like a whole, like he
We all
goes
smoke
off
it
about,
up in heaven.
yeah, he goes off about it for a while.
Did we were?
Can you say crack is a funny word? Absolutely.
It's like scientific.
Beyond.
You could probably prove it chemically. You could probably like hook people up to machines and say like, no, look, crack just gets people. We had coming up with a title for this video. We were just like throwing ideas at the wall while we were building the lights for the Midnight Society shoot. Corey and I were about to go to work, and I walked into the kitchen where Neil was hanging. Everyone was hanging out together, but Neil's family was there. And I just said, listen, brainstorm. We need a title for this one. Go. And I left the room. And later on, you were like, yeah, maybe we could call it like the Dangerfield Act. What was the other one? Emmy wanted to call it Hair of the Dog.
Pretty good, yeah.
Yeah.
But High Moon,
Lance.
High Moon is just like, I can't think of a better title than High
Thank
Moon.
you,
Yeah.
Neil.
Spot on.
I did come up with Moonlighter, which I think would
Oh.
once he pulls out the lighter, it'd be
alright.
like but High Moon. High Moon.
It's
High Moon.
That's it.
Well, happy Halloween, everybody. Assuming
Yeah.
you're listening to this before Halloween.
Ooh. Instinctively. We didn't even talk about that. We just did it. Very good. Well, ladies, gentlemen, folks at home, thank you for listening. Time to get into the Google Drive, Dropbox, what have you, to dump our audio and make this movie auditory magic.
Yeah, let's dump this audio.
Say no to drugs.
Let's rename Guaranteed Audio to Audio Dump.
No.
And every letter in the title is lowercase except the P in dump.
Just the P.
Just the P. Good night, everyone.